Okay, Vic, appreciate you being on here, man.
Thank you.
And we're rolling in 3, 2, 1. This is a special live audience edition of the Mankey Show podcast. I'm your favorite local realtor, Mark Mankey, and this is the Mankey Show podcast. All right, Vick Maan, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, you betcha. So what the hell brought you to Alberta? I mean, beautiful BC, the ever so lovely shade of gray, the skies.
Actually, BC is beautiful, beautiful British Columbia. Born and raised in Abbotsford. We are the berry capital, but I would say...
What kind of berries? What kind
raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, any type of berry you can imagine.
All right.
Yep. So grew up in Abbotsford. Life was pretty awesome in Abbotsford. I was always happy-go-lucky. So I would say what brought me here was started when I was about 15. So when I was 15, I started smoking copious amounts of weed. I was a bit of a follower back then, so I just followed whoever was around me. And loyal to a fault. So in Abbotsford, we had an influx of crime back then. So we had, we became the murder capital of Canada for a stint there. And what I found myself doing and where I was not who I was before I started smoking weed and meeting all these different people. So I found myself in this kind of underworld setting. I found myself when I was 18, 19, not knowing how to cope with all this stress. There were guns, there was detectives, there was cops, there was murders, and I chose to cope with.
How close did that touch you? Did you end up in the middle of a crime scene?
Yeah, I was actually I was kind of involved when I was a little bit younger. So somebody who was a brother of mine, I was with every day, Harry. I was with him about an hour before he was murdered. So that happened when I was about 18. And after that, I kind of spiraled from there. So I was on antidepressants. I tried a single dose that didn't really work. So I was prescribed a triple dose and like 10 different types. And, you mix that with unprocessed rage and again, copious amounts of weed. It's a bit of a cocktail for a mental disaster. So I found myself not knowing who to blame. So I was blaming, drug dealers. I was very angry. I was making threats towards drug dealers. I didn't know, I was making threats towards the government, the system, where are all these drugs coming from and how is this even happening? And why does music sound like complete shit nowadays, which encourages people to sell drugs? So my family didn't know what to do because I was irate. So they actually had an officer come and escort me to the psych ward where I spent a good month in the psych ward.
That's a stretch. Is there a minimum stretch when you get admitted?
I have no idea. I don't even. I think you can go in there for a minimum 2 weeks.
How are you treated while you're in there?
I'll tell you. I've been in the psych ward 3 times. The first time I did not know what was going on, so I was very fearful in the beginning. I would say the people I was connecting with there wasn't a genuine connection with the psychiatrist, with the therapist, that I didn't feel comfortable enough to really believe that they could help me. So I would say if I was going to rate it on Google, they'd get a 1 star for me for that stay.
Did they treat you well though? Was there any abuse?
No abuse. I would say the psychiatrist would get a 1 star. The nurses would get 5 stars. They were so accommodating. They were always communicating, talking, and I genuinely believed in their approach. So I found myself, it was a bit of a lengthy
what did that
journey.
do for your self-esteem being in there?
Put it in the crapper. My social status was eradicated. Everybody thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy. I didn't know how to manage my emotions.
Would you say that it almost did more harm than good then?
A little bit, yeah. It was, and by no fault of my mother, she just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So she had me admitted because what was she going to do at that point when, she had seen all the the violence, and she knew what happened to Harry. And I mean, there's no other choice for her really, but to kind of just anybody help me and my son. She's just on. I remember her when they admitted me. She's in the parking lot on her knees. My brother was holding her up, and he was going through, because they said I was bipolar. They said I was the multiple personality. They didn't really know, right, at the beginning. And I remember my brother going on Google and being like, "Look, Mom, look at what happened to Oprah. Look at even Winston Churchill. These guys had depression. These guys had what they called mania, and that kind of helped her maybe not so much think that her son was going to be lost forever. So there was a little bit of hope left for her. So she was the rock. So that's a whole different podcast we could do on my mom.
That first day, did you make friends with any other patients? Did you interact with other patients?
I did. I found myself even, because I naturally love to connect with people. So I found myself connecting with everybody in the psych ward, making friends, hearing their stories, what brought them there. And, once you get past what seems like crazy talk, then you get to this point where it's like, this person I'm communicating with is just unable to manage their emotions, because it's kind of like the kettle just boiled over. They don't know what they're doing, or it's a lack of, if it's depression. So really good people I met. Some people I still talk to this day.
From the first day?
Yeah.
What happened after that? When you got out? I
got out. Old habits die hard. So I found myself still back in that kind of underworld setting. I was so depressed I couldn't articulate sentences. I remember not leaving the home, but only time I would go out would be to smoke weed with friends, and trying to get, I went to like a job placement agency trying to get.
What age are you at this point?
I think about 20, 21.
Okay.
And I was trying to get, I had like 50 different odd end jobs, trying to get a job. I went to, they used to call it welfare, but it turned into income assistance. So I was on income assistance, where they had these programs like jobs building programs, which were phenomenal. Buxton Consulting, I remember, and I still have the little flash drive in my office from Buxton Consulting that they gave me to help me learn how to create a resume and all that. So yeah, it had its ups and downs, but I found myself still back in that kind of underworld setting, and this time. Still, I realized I didn't cry when Harry was murdered. It was more like rage inside of me. And I found that the next time it still bubbled up, and I blew up, and I was saying these outlandish things online about drug dealers and this, that. So when my mom took me back and again, escorted by the police, they had said, this time we're going to give your son an antipsychotic injection. So, they gave me, because they said you can't be making those kind of threats online.
So what kind of threats were you making?
Well, I was going to kick in drug dealers' doors. I actually kicked in one guy's door. I'm glad he wasn't home. I was going to kick in their doors. I was going to tie them up, and just a string of, I guess, very aggressive comments.
You were going to go full Punisher.
Basically. And
I'm actually surprised it doesn't happen. I mean, I'm a combat veteran. In the audience there's a combat veteran, and I've always, like, sometimes we get together. We got the skills, we got the toys. Yeah. We can go clear house, and they wouldn't have a bloody hope. Yeah. And I'm really surprised that actually has never happened.
And I'm sure it does, but there's just not to the degree that you get when you see injustice. You're compelled. I think it's human nature to want to do something about it, and a lot of the times, you get to that boiling point where I was doing something physical about it. And I after they gave me that injection, though, there was nothing aggressive about me. There was no anger. There was no happiness. There was no sadness.
What did they put in you? Do you know?
I still haven't gone back to look at it, but I just know they were antipsychotic injections. No, even with the antidepressants, I don't remember what it was called. I never really took a look at it. I just kind of was like, sure, I'll take that. I'll try this kind of thing. And then when my kind of soul flatlined when I was 300 pounds, I at that stage I was pretty much numb. Kind of like I used to describe it as like an abyss, but it was more like purgatory. So I was living at my mom's, in my mom's attic, 300 pounds, not knowing, couldn't even function.
I'm sorry. Did you just say you were 300 pounds?
Yes.
That's hard to picture.
Yeah.
You're a handsome, fit fella now.
Thank you. It was drug assisted weight. And so I'm living upstairs for about a year. And all I could do was fantasize about and plot my suicide. So
I know that well.
yeah, I planned it, and it was the only thing that really gave me solace was like that sweet release. I could imagine, okay, I won't be here anymore. And I remember I bought a rope. I wrote the note. I put it under my dresser, and I made sure nobody would find it. It was weird. I bought like a bottle of eucalyptus, and I was going to drink all of that as well. And while I hung myself, I mean, it was a year of planning. I didn't know. I wanted to make sure that it ended.
Why eucalyptus?
What
the hell?
Because when you're searching online, I was looking for what I could get my hands on, and eucalyptus, if you ingest it in large amounts, it'll actually close your respiratory system. It'll actually close down your esophagus. So kind of like asphyxiation. I think I pronounced that right.
So you were Googling.
Yeah, Googling
ways to do it.
Yeah, Googling, and I remember wanting to.
So what do you think about deep state kind of tactics, big brother tactics, where say the cops are just like they do for child porn.
Yeah.
So they some sort of mechanism where there's a flag.
They can detect it. That'd be phenomenal.
So when it comes to personal rights and privacy rights, you think that'd be okay?
100%. There could be an algorithm that would detect whether or not this looks suspicious. Because if you were to look at my Google searches since I was 18 to 25, you'd be like, there is something definitely wrong with this person. He is not navigating through the web, using it as a resource to better himself. He's actually looking based on his search history. This is we can tell that all roads lead to misery. So I think that would be very useful. And fortunately, though, there is when I was gonna go, I remember walking down to go to the tree. I picked out the tree. I was walking there, but I didn't do it and I just started walking, and I kept walking, and I don't know how long I walked for, and then I went back home, and I guess my heart rate was up. I had never even got my heart rate up really in about a year, because all I was doing was I was a sloth. I was just like laying in bed watching TV mindlessly, and I remember my heart rate got up, and I just and I told myself, you're not going to do this to your family. But years later, I knew it was me. I couldn't do this to myself. And at that point, that was my turning point. I started, and I was blessed to be at my mom's blueberry farm, which gave me this freedom. There was nobody around me. We had a barn. I put up a punching bag, and I just started bare knuckle boxing. Like, I just would punch it till my knuckles would bleed. I put up inspirational quotes all around the blueberry barn. I would go online, and this time talking about the search results, I was using the internet as a great source of inspiration. So I was like,
so instead of a weapon, now was a tool of enlightenment.
It was 100% that. I was on Lumosity. I was training my brain. I was journaling. I was doing saltwater flushes. I was chanting.
That's a radical 180.
Yeah.
Were you able to maintain this 180? Did you ever go back?
No, 100%, because I truly believe I had cut off all external influences. I didn't have a girl.
So you stayed on the tracks.
I stayed on the track.
You got on these tracks, and that was that.
Yeah, so much momentum. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a job. All I had was my routine that I developed. So it was very militant. I woke up. I did the same thing, and I kind of got myself to the state where I got a job.
Up until now, the send unit to this thing was way down, and it was about 3 minutes in that I decided, just for safety's sake, to hit this record
we can
button.
do it again.
No. We'll just keep on going, man.
Yeah. So
that means there was no intro. There was nothing.
Oh, that's fine.
Hang on. Let's start for anybody. Hang on. That's unbelievable. Hang on. In 3, 2, 1. All right, we're mid-show here, realizing that I'm an idiot and I didn't have one of the things on. And we're starting again. I'm just going to play the whole damn thing regardless. I don't care.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we were just getting the most fantastic story from Vick Maan. We got most of it on my USB card. Son of a bitch. The guy's bearing his soul, and we got the studio audience that's hearing it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we are on location at Tribal Market, and today's show is sponsored by the Veterans Food Bank of Calgary. So if you've got some toothbrushes or some canned goods or some other great things that a food bank could use, do consider the Veterans Food Bank in Calgary. And on the show, we have the most interesting fella, a handsome brown guy by the name of Vick Maan.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate it. So we were just talking, and you're giving us your background in the world of drugs as a young man, which at some point metastasized and morphed into psychotic break.
Yeah.
And one trip to the psych ward, second trip to the psych ward, and was it after the third one? Because you said there was 3, right?
There was 3. So the second time, after
after the first one is when you turn things around, though.
the first one, I did not turn things around. The first one, so after Harry,
One fist.
oh, so after Harry was murdered, I kind of went. I went into the psych ward, very angry. Spent about a good 3 weeks to a month there, and then got back out. Fell back into the old pattern, surrounding myself with the same kind of people that were in that kind of underworld setting. Went into the psych ward again because of this time I was saying some not so nice things about what I wanted to do to drug dealers and what was wrong with the system and where these drugs and guns coming from kind of thing. They took that as threats, antipsychotic injection. After that, 300 pounds, living at my mom's blueberry farm in the attic for about a year, and did not go through with an attempt at suicide. And at that stage, I transformed myself. Lost all the weight, started running, started putting up inspirational quotes all in the barn. And
Did you have a favorite?
Do not wait to strike until the iron is hot. Make it hot by striking.
Ooh, say that again.
Do not wait to strike until the iron is hot. Make it hot by striking. So take action.
Take action. Don't wait for the perfect moment.
No.
Just start going.
Just do it. Like,
I like it.
Like even with what we did, we're just going to keep striking at this podcast. We're just going to you keep striking, and I that's what I took to heart because I was at a bit of a stalemate in my life and I couldn't progress. So I started striking. I started, 300 pounds. Brain doesn't seem to work. Couldn't even articulate sentences. But I struck, and I started going on Lumosity, and I started journaling, and you do saltwater flushes, chakra tune-ups, anything you can get your hands on. And then that transformation had me super fit. I was in my prime, and I, on a whim, somebody I grew up with was like a brother to me who lived in that kind of lifestyle back then, had suggested that we move to Okotoks because his brother has a stucco company. And I was like, what the hell's Okotoks? Sounds like a made up place.
It does.
And I didn't have much money at that time because I just started working again. But I'd say the kind of, coming out here on with him was like, sure, we'll do it. We're brothers. We went through a lot growing up. Our kids are going to grow up. They're going to play together, all that. So I came out to Okotoks on a Greyhound bus with a medicine ball and about $2,000 in my bank account. And I was coming out here to do stucco. And I had imagined I was going to teach yoga because something I forgot to mention after the first time I was in the psych ward, my mother sent me to India. So I lived at her house in India for about a year where I grabbed a book on yoga and started kind of teaching myself different styles of yoga and then started practicing regularly.
Do you have a favorite?
I would say it's a combination. It's a blend. I really like Kundalini yoga. It's the yoga.
Why do you like that?
It's the yoga of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yoga with a lot of deep breathing exercises, coupled with various types of meditation. And the goal with that is to kind of strengthen that awareness muscle. And I really believe in awareness to the point where once you become aware, let's say if you have an issue, whether it's physically, emotionally, if you're aware of it and you don't succumb to its kind of power, you're aware of it, you can start to then begin to kind of strategize and strike. Let's think of a way out. Let's improve. So I came here. I realized very quickly I'm not a stucco guy. I was living in Legolands here in Okotoks, and I said, okay, I need money, because in my mind I had imagined, I was like, okay, I'm gonna open up a health and wellness center. I kept thinking health and wellness center. I'm gonna teach yoga. Like how can I give back? Because at that point, when you go from the bottom of the bottom and you kind of now you're kind of standing so tall, you're like, well, what else is there for me to do but kind of help others that have been in the same situation? So I was like, okay, well, yoga's the way. So I needed more money for this center, and so I walked across the street to Ford, where actually I convinced Ken, the sales manager, to give me a job. I started selling cars.
How'd you do?
I did really well. I sold the most cars after about 4 months. And that was
like out of the other guys, out of the top guy.
I made top guy after about 4 or 5 months, and that's kind of unheard of in the car sales industry, because you typically have to, what they say is, you build your client base and you build off referrals, and it really hits after about the first year. But I owe all of that to Okotoks, and actually your wife as well, Tracy McKinnon, who purchased.
Yeah, you owe her some butter chicken, mister.
I owe a lot of people.
She wasn't going to buy that Fiesta unless there was butter chicken as part of the deal. That's what you promised.
I know, that was always a part of the package.
She's still driving that car. It's
okay.
a good car.
Well, we're going to have a butter chicken banquet pretty soon here.
And we got Chris Reeder in the audience here, hacking up a lung. I think he swallowed a cat on the way in.
So I started doing that, and then
how'd you like it?
I loved it. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the art of the sale, something I never really imagined as a skill. I started to learn how to think like a commission sales representative. To really,
there can be good money in cars. Why'd you leave it?
I left it because I had an opportunity to go to Motion Fitness, and I felt, okay, well, this is great because this aligns with the whole yoga realm. I'll go become a personal trainer. But then somebody I had worked with at Ford, his father started a company in Calgary where they needed, it was a startup, and they needed me to go there. So I, after about kind of getting at me for about 6 months, I said, okay, let's do this. What really got me is they said they were going to compete with Facebook, and everybody else was saying no. I said yes, so we'll strike. So I went there. I believed in what we were doing, but primarily what I did was I was making 400 phone calls a day. I was training sales teams, growing sales teams. I learned how to coach them. I was on the phones, door to doors, trade shows, special events. But at that point, I exhausted myself. Where I was like, where are you going? Look where you were, look where you are now. This isn't the realm. It's not about the money. You can teach yoga. So then, like I told you,
you do got the look. I mean, you look like a yoga instructor. There's no question.
Especially when I was with my flip flops earlier. And I
can almost see your aura.
It was I tapped out of the general sales manager gig, and I got certified to teach yoga. And this is like turning point, because at the beginning of this story, I was a product of my environment, and then everything started to shift. And then after I got certified to teach, I started something called Yoga Tokes here in Okotoks, where we just put on free health and wellness events for the community. And I was at this point where I thought I was going to, okay, this is great. I'm going to open up this health and wellness center. But it didn't work out. Long story short, other partners were involved, and everybody's visions were kind of clouded. And it didn't really work out that way. So I was like, okay, well, I left that job. What am I going to do now? I was actually with Yoga Tokes, how it started. I was doing sales and marketing coaching for my friends who are in health and wellness, kind of teaching them the skills that I had learned at my previous role to help them apply a commission sales representative mindset, because I believe that all business owners are commission sales representatives. If you do not sell, if you're not marketing, you will not eat. So that's all. That's commission sales. So a lot of my friends who are in the holistic realm, they don't necessarily have that skill set. They don't think,
they actually work against it. They think they have this negative outlook on what sales is, and they think, ew, that's not me.
It's a beautiful art, Mark. I tell you. Okay, so my yoga teacher training, there was a shaman there. He burnt the fire for 21 days straight. And I thought, okay, I'm getting out of the sales world, and what are you going to be when you leave here? And I was looking into this fire, and I don't really ever see anything visually. I just feel very intensely, and I'm staring into this fire. I'm like, am I going to be a shaman? Am I going to be a yoga instructor? Something came back. I don't know what it was. I started thinking about the art of the sale. And I thought, well, this is the greatest skill that ever existed. This is the art of selling. You sell yourself on what you want to do before anybody else buys it. You sell relationships. You sell, and the art I saw that art. So that's where I fell in love with sales. So that's why I became a sales coach in town and working with businesses and of all different backgrounds to kind of help them with that bit of a mindset. But I am actually right now. That brings me to the present day. It wasn't going to be a health and wellness center. What I'm working towards right now is a mental health campaign. It's actually called the Mental Wealth Campaign. We actually officially launched.
Nice twist. I like that.
Thank you. We start next week. We are going to be raising about $100K. Hopefully we will get that goal before the end of the summer, which will allow us to employ full-time staff, admin, event coordinators, where we will be doing peer-to-peer support groups at least once a day for the youth, the elderly, and everybody in between. We will be creating online tools and resources for anything mental health related. We will be doing events, talks, speeches. I'll even knock on everybody's door.
How are you going to get the funding for that?
Different events. So we have our first event that we're planning here at Tribal Connections. So it'll be a music banquet with dinner, butter chicken.
Butter chicken.
So there'll be tickets sold for that.
Are you making the butter chicken?
I'm making the butter chicken.
All right. Because you know what? You talk up that butter chicken pretty high.
Oh, it's curry in a hurry. It's the type
curry in a hurry.
Yeah, it's the type of curry that you use to bribe a jury. So that'll be there. Actually, my sales and marketing company, Neo Label, I'm actually passing that off to 3 other companies in town. And a percentage of anything sold from that will go towards to fund the mental wealth campaign. I also offer still sales coaching in the holistic realm, health and wellness coaching. So that'll fund it. And these events, donations as well. If anybody would like to contribute, that'll all be kind of live next week. And then we'll get it to this point where it's self-sustainable. Kind of run it with a social enterprise model where we will run in a corporate fashion so we can be sustainable. So in the beginning, we will rely a little bit on everybody else's support around us, but we will get to this point where we will be able to generate enough income to continuously grow this to I would say the way I can look at mental health is this is an epidemic. There is a battle going on that everybody is fighting with themselves, whether they know it or not. And I firmly believe in the Ranger Code, so nobody gets left behind. So if there are people that are suffering and there are attempts at kind of reaching them, people always ask me, well, how are you going to reach those that are at that tipping point? And I say, well, whichever way I can. It's almost as if people with that are struggling mentally have this kind of numerical code on their brain. It's this vault of all the answers, and you're trying to help them. And all I'm going to do is, I don't know the code, but I'm going to keep hitting all these different combinations until I find that code, and I'm going to earn some trust, and I will support you, and I will help guide you towards becoming liberated, so you can lead yourself, kind of like what I did. I'm just doing this based on experience. So if I saw myself at that point,
now mental health, there's some liability involved in that. I know that firsthand.
Yeah.
I had to get shipped out to Montreal for a course so that I could officially run a veteran support group for PTSD. They wouldn't let me do it without the course.
Yeah.
So what sort of certifications and whatnot are you looking to get, or do you have?
So that'll be coming up, because we won't be officially launching until we reach the 100K. So right now I'm in the process of just completely shutting down my practice. So for sales coaching, typically I've been building a bit of a network. So if I'm not the one facilitating, it'll be friends that are therapists, that are psychologists, that are already running it. And I firmly believe in a multifaceted approach. So even if I'm not the one that's facilitating it, I will market and I will promote somebody else to do so. And even with the sales and marketing company, we want to support other initiatives, other nonprofits, other innovators, and help them with grow their campaign, grow their initiative. So because I'm not, I know that. It's not a one man or one woman approach to this whatsoever. It's a collective kind of battle. And when I say battle, that's exactly what it is. There's so much turmoil. There's so much grief, and there's so much anger, and I have a very proactive mentality when it comes to dealing with this. That if I'm not the one who's going to be doing the speaking or the facilitating, I will go and I'll knock on people's doors till I find the person. So I'll use that, and it all comes back to sales. I realized that too. I was like, how can I grow this, and how can I reach as many people as possible? Well, you can do it with like you would with a sales team, door to doors, on the phones. We'll have a good news marketing campaign. We'll advertise. We'll put our messages on taxis, on bus benches. We will kind of.
So what's the full suite of services that where's it going to start, and what's it going to grow into? So you're looking at peer-to-peer support.
Peer-to-peer support groups. We will offer an online resource, so that will kind of direct and navigate everybody within our community to all the free resources that they have available. I've been collecting them for about a year. There's so many, and when I bring them up, like grief support, single dads groups support, they're all over the place. But just kind of consolidate that and put it in one channel for everybody. We will also do different events as well that kind of raise awareness, whether they're musical, whether they're yoga talk. So we do health and wellness events in the summer. So it was always free, but now we'll be raising funds for this campaign. So we'll just kind of, I sound excited because I've been doing this I've been planning this for about ever since.
Where's all the drive come from? Is it from your own personal experiences?
It's all from that. It's all from that, but it's also from what I see around me. So it's a mix. It's 50% what I went through, and it's 50% what I see others going through. Whether I've worked with them in the business world, whether there was like health and wellness, whether it's people that are in my family. If I can't, I absorb. I don't know what other way to put it. I absorb others' energies around me. So if somebody around me is,
they call them empath.
I'm an empath to a T. And I can go live in the forest by myself. I'll be perfectly happy. This beard will grow down to my ankles, and I'll just kind of chop wood and live on my own, and I'll be happy as a clam. But if I'm in a community and
I'll come visit. I'll bring beer.
Bring me beer. Bring me
and scotch and the scars.
Butter chicken in the woods. We'll just.
It'll be butter prairie chicken.
Yeah, butter prairie chicken. And I just feel like if I'm in a community and I have the drive and I have the skills that I've developed, why not? There's nothing else I'd rather do with my time than this. I dedicate my life to this, and it's something that's been culminating for probably about 10 years now.
So, I think we're there. Vic, it's always inspiring when you run into somebody like yourself who isn't just talking, they're doing. There's dreams are a dime a dozen. And it's like you say, how do you say the thing about the iron and the...
Just do not wait to strike until the iron is hot. Make it hot by striking.
So you're just making it hot by striking. You're just ready, fire, aim. You're not waiting for everything to line up. You're just moving forward with faith that it will line up, that if you do the right things will happen. And you're just moving forward with it. We got a lot to talk about, brother. Just a little bit of serendipity. I swore to myself I wouldn't start writing any more books until I get on my feet with my real estate business. I couldn't flip and help it.
It's a calling.
I started writing a book on how to run mental health peer support groups.
All right.
I started it
if
today.
If this isn't fate, I don't know what is.
I got the outline. I've got a co-author who's got her PhD. Her doctoral thesis is on PTSD.
Okay.
Because I'm a combat veteran. That guy over there is a combat veteran. We've been through it, and we've both survived it. And you survived it. You know, you don't need to be in a war zone to have PTSD or other anxiety issues. You know, it's life just does that to you.
Agreed.
And what we're finding is that as we're doing these peer-to-peer support groups, which I've been doing for 2 years, and I run one, or help run one anyway, what we find is I'm pulling lessons out of my ear, and but nobody's recording them. So I was like, what the hell did I come up with again? I don't know.
Yeah, you're just in the moment, right?
Yeah, I was just in the moment, and I come up with things like arcs of fire and windshield theory. And so I'm starting to write them down so I don't lose them. And then expanding on them and taking a rough idea and turn it into a polished idea. It's critical because there's just not enough resources out there at all.
Agreed.
Vick Maan, welcome to the Mikey Show.
Thank you.
I am your host, Mark Mankey, and this is the Mikey Show podcast.